Honestly, I have more of a problem with the Doctor himself saying Doctor Who, like 5 times as if he's a child, but...
Yeah. I just got that song Doctor and the TARDIS stuck in my head when they were doing that.
Doctor Who.
Great song, by the way.
Doctor Who.
Everyone, welcome to our pilot episode of An Unearthly Podcast, our podcast on new episodes of Doctor Who and all things Who related. I'm the Man in Black, and with me are...
Flynn. That's all you should know me as.
Who's to the left of Flynn?
There is no one to the left. There's only darkness. Actually, I'll go next. I'm Matt. I do my own web show, Matt Reviews, which actually is going to be changing names now. And I've been a Who fan for, the better part of a decade now. At least, somewhere around there. Since they started the new series, really.
Right. I'm Randy, though I prefer Ron. I've been a Doctor Who fan since around 1983, and I tend to keep myself a bit of update with all of the fan information, as well as other fiction works, projects, etc.
Hey everyone, I'm Thomas, and I actually can't remember when I got into Doctor Who. I think it was only in like the last couple of years. And the main reason was actually not...
I'm the noob here. I started this spring.
Yeah, like, the main reason, like, as far as New Who went, I think it was a friend of mine is, like, obsessed with Doctor Who, and I got into it through that. And the old stuff I got into because that's pretty much all my mum will watch. Like, when she found they had DVDs of the old stuff going around, she just went after that.
Which is awesome.
Alright guys, and for our pilot episode, we'll of course be talking about the Season 7 premiere, Asylum of the Daleks. Who wants to give the plot summary? I know Matt's good at those.
Actually, Randy would probably be better at this one, actually.
You want me to?
I can just read it off of Shannon Sullivan.
Alright, well, story begins, actually it prologues with 5 of the webisodes of the Pond family, which we basically discover that by the end, Amy and Rory are...
4 of them are filler, and 1 of them actually has content.
And 2 of them are shit.
Yeah. But yeah, at the end of it, we discover that Amy and Rory have split up.
They're also being lit differently, and apparently have a new makeup director and all that.
We discover at the beginning of episode 1 that they're finishing up filing for divorce. Amy is working on her fashion modeling career, and Rory is, well, Rory.
Although, I would say it's entirely possible that they just caught Karen Gillan at a modeling shoot and didn't tell her that she was actually Amy at the time.
That's possible. But as they're finishing this up, they're both captured independently by people that are, well, Daleki on the inside. I don't know any other way to put it. The Doctor, likewise, is also captured on Skaro.
Which exists now.
Which apparently exists now. I mentioned before this that it's kind of like the Kenny of the Doctor Who universe. It gets destroyed and it comes back. But
you wiped the surface again, you bastards.
They're all taken to a Dalek, which holds the Parliament of the Daleks. Which is another mental issue. Does the Daleks change their government every, like...
I kind of just completely... I completely... My brain just refused to accept that. There are Daleks. Okay, that's all my brain would accept about the group of people who are meeting.
See, I think they're just trying to hit every single kind of government out there, so next time we'll be seeing Democracy of the Daleks, you know?
That would be interesting. It's just,
Because, you know, that's
Daleks,
easy.
they have been
It's
defeated.
easy when you've got a race of
While we're
like-minded
there,
people.
I have to bring up a point of confusion for me. Was that supposed to be Dalek Khan, who was the spokesperson? Because
I don't think so.
That makes no
Yeah,
sense.
that voice sounded so
It
familiar.
was
Well,
definitely the same voice, but I'm like, if that was supposed to be the same character, it makes zero sense.
90% of the Daleks are voiced by the same person, so he probably used his Dalek Khan voice for it,
So
but I don't think...
why was there a Dalek? Like, he said he wasn't the, Prime Minister or whatever they had. He said he wasn't him, somebody else was. So why was he sitting outside of his casing and being the spokesperson?
My guess is just that they wanted the Dalek outside of the casing, and that's just the voice Briggs uses for Daleks outside of casing. It's not Dalek Khan, just someone outside of casing.
Why was there a Dalek outside of his casing there?
Because he can do what he wants. I don't know.
Because he can.
Because he wanted to stretch his tentacles.
Yeah.
Or was,
Cramped there.
Or was he really the Dalek Emperor, acting like there was a Dalek Prime Minister just to throw the Doctor off guard?
The Emperors typically look different, I think, but I don't know.
But they look different inside their casing.
True.
Well,
no,
it was outside of his casing, too. But we digress. Instead of deciding to kill the Doctor, Amy and Rory, they want his help. They want him to go down to the Asylum of the Daleks, a planet in which they hold Daleks which are too insane to be Daleks. Now, I will give you a moment to actually ponder this. Daleks are already rolling master creatures powered by static electricity and hate.
And don't try to tell them otherwise.
And Dalek Khan was considered to be the mad one.
Yes. So
ship.
there are Daleks so much more insane than that they actually put them in a planet and wall them off with a giant force field. Okay, we'll go with this so far on you, Moffat. Just because. Anyway, the Daleks are getting a signal from the planet. A signal that is definitely not Dalek. In fact, it's rather human. They're receiving Carmen, the opera. It turns out that a spaceship crashed on the Dalek Asylum, which might mean that there's a very large hole in their force field, which means that Daleks can get out. So they want the Doctor to go down, lower the force field so they can destroy the planet. The Doctor really doesn't really want to do this, but doesn't really have a choice. So down they go.
He's not particularly angry about that fact. He's just like, wait, why are you launching me at a planet? Okay, you're launching me at a planet. So that's how 11 rolls, apparently.
Well, the
enemy of the
Dalek task force to do this, and that's basically no. Okay, it's us.
Well, the enemy of your enemy is your friend, I guess.
Until you
not where the Daleks concerned. The enemy of your enemy is your enemy's enemy.
Well, I think the assumption is they want to kill the Doctor. Obviously, they know he's good at whatever he does. And so their assumption is probably that, okay, we've got this thing we need to destroy, put him in there, destroy him, kill two birds with one stone.
If we're lucky.
That's probably their plan.
Pretty much standard Dalek find a way to completely win plan.
Mm-hmm.
So they all get split up, being fired down to the planet in this giant energy ray. And one of them runs across apparently a survivor of the ship, the Alaska, which has apparently been down there a year. I'm going to take another pause for a moment and ask, if this ship has been crashed for a year, which means there's been a hole in their force field for a year, wouldn't the Daleks have already escaped? Just a thought.
They are crazy.
Anyway, the Doctor catches up with Amy. They try to track down Rory, who's apparently fallen down a very large hole.
Like he does.
They try to find another way down. They climb down into the one of the escape pods from the Alaska, whom the guy swears only been there a few hours. It's been there a year, and all the people in the ship are dead. And actually, So is the guy. He just hasn't realized it and stopped moving yet. He turns into a Dalek puppet zombie, as do the dead guys, and they all pretty much go after the Doctor and Amy. Doctor and Amy are safe because they're wearing little watches that are keeping apparently nanogenes from turning them into Dalek puppets. And they manage to get out of there, find a pathway down, being helped by a mysterious voice coming from apparently the ship that crashed. During the process, Amy loses the little device that keeps her from being infected by these nanogenes. And Rory lands in the middle of basically classic Dalekville. There's no other way to describe it, really. It's rusted old Daleks from every era of Doctor Who.
Speaking of which, the special weapons Dalek was supposed to be there. Did anybody see
it? Yeah, I saw
watched
it.
That was a few times. It was there, but it never moved.
Where was he?
It was in that same room that Rory landed in.
Ah.
See that, and well, we'll talk about that later.
All the Daleks were disabled, but Rory, being Rory, finds a way to turn it on. Turn them all on. And, of course, in the process, piss them off. They're Daleks, that doesn't take much. You could sneeze, it would piss them off. But that same voice, who they originally heard back with the Parliament, and is known as Soufflé Girl, since apparently she spends her spare time trying to make soufflés, though the Doctor is curious where she gets the milk and eggs.
Eggs.
Him
It was
into
exactly
a
the conversation that Rory was having with the Dalek. He was trying to figure out where to get eggs to make a souffle. Or something.
Something like that. Holding up a Dalek sphere, asking, "Is this what you're looking for?" Egg. Yeah. So, Rory and the disembodied voice of Soufflé Girl flirt with each other a little bit. It's a little odd.
Again, not like we haven't seen
Amy and the Doctor eventually reach that same room. Amy, by this point, is feeling the effect of becoming Dalekized and is starting to hallucinate. And, of course, manages to alert all the Daleks that are in the room. And the Doctor, being the Doctor, blows them up.
Unfortunately, she doesn't ask the Doctor if he likes green apples, and she could get him a soda.
Where?
Judging by the silence, I take it none of you have seen that clip.
I don't think so. I think I might have missed that one.
Wait, I didn't hear what you said.
I'll link you to it, but you probably don't want to watch it till after we're done.
Yeah, I won't.
Wait, what did you say?
I said, unfortunately, Amy doesn't ask the Doctor if he likes green apples, and she can get him a soda.
Yeah.
Oh, you know
went
what?
over my head.
The first episode of Doctor number 11.
Well, no, this wasn't
I am assuming.
This wasn't an actual episode. This was like a thing they did at like a con or some sort of appearance. I watched a YouTube video of it.
Okay, yeah.
Doctor, do you like green apples? And can I buy you a soda?
Yeah, I can't remember any of that.
A room full of Daleks exploding up attracts Rory, so we get the three of them together. Amy's in bad shape. The Doctor winds up leading them to a teleport pad, which could get them out of there. Problem is, the controls for the force field are controlled by Soufflé Girl, who insists that the Doctor come and get her before she'll release this force field. Doctor has Rory take care of Amy and takes off. And he eventually gets there until he hits the intensive care ward. Daleks that had survived many wars, including wars on Exelon. That ring a bell to anybody?
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
That's Death to the Daleks, isn't it?
Yes, that is. In fact, every war mentioned in there was one from the second or third Doctor era. I think Vulcan
I'm
was
looking up
mentioned,
that quote so I can kind of piece it together myself.
Yeah, I think I caught all of them but one. And, of course, the fact that the Doctor's very presence in the room wakes all of those Daleks up.
I'm sure none of them are very happy about that
To,
either.
not be killed, or not to have the Doctor killed, Souffle Girl manages to hack the Daleks' PsyWeb, their psychic web network, and erase all references of the Doctor from the Dalek database. These Daleks...
I was going to say this.
Get
I won't
about
say
him.
this for the rants, but to reiterate what he said, someone in an insane asylum hacks into the entire Dalek Empire's hive mind to erase a vital piece of information. Any insane Dalek apparently could do this.
Yeah.
If anything, I'm surprised they didn't pull this earlier.
On that for the rant as well. But I'm going to hold my tongue and finish my summary before it takes up the entire time we're doing this. So, all the Daleks forget about him and wander off to their various cubicles to sleep it off. And they manage to get the door to Souffle Girl unlocked. And the Doctor makes a rather depressing discovery. Souffle Girl was a human and is now a Dalek. She just doesn't realize it, or at least is repressing it. Where is she getting the eggs? She's not, because it's all in her mind.
She was a Dalek the whole time.
So, they talk this out, hash it out. She starts going Dalek and then forces herself back. She releases the force field and has the Doctor run.
He's very good at that.
Oh, yes.
He's only had a few hundred years to work at it.
He runs. He runs all the way back to the teleport, where by that point, Amy and Rory have kind of patched their relationship back together. Apparently, all it needs for the Ponds to get together is to be in mortal peril. We find out the reason Amy left Rory is because something happened to her and she can no longer have kids. So the Doctor, seeing things put back together, finds a way to beam them back up to the Dalek ship. Right into the TARDIS. And the Daleks ask who he is.
Because,
and
you know,
of course,
well, okay, go ahead. I'll save this for later.
And of course, the Doctor, being the Doctor, basically says, I'm the Doctor.
Completely erasing the whole reason why he was deleted.
Mm-hmm. The Daleks respond with Doctor Who. And going off with a whole bunch of the Dalek parliament screaming, Doctor Who, they get in the TARDIS, fly back to Earth, put the Ponds back where they belong, and to the Doctor, all is right with the world. For now. That's pretty much the episode summary in a nutshell, I think.
Let's start with our pros then. What are our favorite things about this episode?
Well, I like the fact that we did get to see Daleks from all the different areas. The different models, that is.
Yeah.
Did we really, though? Like, aside from maybe...
I couldn't really tell.
Davies era.
Yeah,
what I saw most was just that, it was just the Daleks from the new series. Like, I once saw a Hartnell Dalek and once a Special Weapons Dalek, but it was like fleeting glances. It was never
it was really only in that one scene. You could see, if you looked closely, you could see a few others from some of the...
Yeah.
Then again,
I think there was at least one movie Dalek. What?
Throughout most of the classic series, I don't think they had more than 4 or 5 Daleks at a time versus...
There are some differences.
Yeah. I don't think they had the budget to actually have more than 4 or 5 built at one time for the first 30 years of the show's run, so...
Actually, I have a very good question. Did they have any of the movie Daleks from the 60s?
I might have seen one, but I
didn't see them.
Darn it.
But the movie Daleks were later reused in the show.
Aren't canon anyway.
Well, actually, technically
Yeah.
they were before used in the show, reused in the show, because the chase aired before the movie, and they were in the chase.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I know I saw at least one of the Daleks that didn't have the slats down by the where the plunger and things are, and those were very early Hartnell era
Hartnell
Daleks.
Yeah, that would mean that they were from the first appearance.
Yeah.
First or second, I think. Because they didn't get the slats till the chase.
Yeah, it wasn't until the chase that they got those. Before that, they had the big antenna on the back.
Oh, okay.
But I saw at least one of those. I saw, I think, a Genesis-era Dalek once. But it was still kind of nice to see that, if it had made sense.
I don't think we saw any
later.
black Daleks.
I didn't remember any, no.
A Dalek Supreme go insane?
No, I mean the from when it was white Daleks versus black Daleks.
Oh, Renegade faction.
From the 80s episodes. There's no
Yeah.
Dalek Civil War.
No, apparently the Renegade faction was completely wiped out.
Dun dun dun.
I didn't see any Imperial Daleks either, or the white ones.
Well, technically the special weapons Dalek counts.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Otherwise,
And of course, apparently the new Dalek paradigm consists of exactly 5 Daleks, and they never created more of that paradigm.
Actually, other than that,
Well,
the Daleks I think were just regular Daleks with spray paint.
Well, they were a different shape and everything. Like they're supposed to reveal that they have extra weapons and everything.
What I heard with them, of course, is that they were initially supposed to be just kind of an elite class, like a officer class of Daleks. So there's supposed to be less of them than the normal ones. Of course, it's also that people hated that design.
Yeah, that's mainly the thing. Because even Moffat said that that idea failed. Because one of them, I think the red one, is supposed to be the drone. All the new drone Daleks were supposed to look like that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But they realized that no one liked it. I guess they didn't build any more.
Right.
So were there any other pros on this episode?
Oswin was pretty cool. She definitely...
Souffle Girl, for those of you that hadn't seen it.
Yeah. She definitely acted her part very well. Very effective, I'd say.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I must admit, I didn't figure it out until it happened.
Right.
And I smacked myself.
I think I figured it out just before. But I think with me, it got kind of spoilt because I think I'd seen images of it where it was like that awkward moment when the Doctor's crushes a Dalek or some crap.
The whole time I was watching it, I was like, wait, is she? I'm like, no, she can't be a Dalek because a Dalek wouldn't understand opera. A Dalek wouldn't understand souffles. So how could they trick her into thinking that if they have no concept of that? But apparently they did. So I was convinced that it would have been impossible because they did not have a concept of those things.
Well, I think the point there, though, is that the whole reason that she's not technically a Dalek, if she still has her human spirit, is because she's still able to keep that, and it's implied that that's her dream world of sorts.
Makes sense.
Like she still retains a lot of her humanity.
It has to be a dream world if you're keeping Daleks out by nailing wooden planks to the door. Because that was one of the earliest scenes in the episode, and I'm sitting there like, she's nailing wooden planks to the door to keep Daleks out.
Yeah, only works in the 1960s.
Which I can only respond. Exterminate.
But yeah, it was her own little version of the Matrix there. Her own little reality, just non-perfect enough for her to believe it. Anybody else have any ideas?
The positives.
I actually kind of like that whole thing that they had split up Rory and Amy, because that actually was like, oh, okay. There's a bit of realism in that, in a way.
If they had done it in a way that did not seem like a cheap plot contrivance, like they could have done it well, but they really, the whole way it was pulled off, the way they were split up, and the way they were put back together, both of those were like a slap in the face. It's like, hey, watch the episode, slap. Like, okay, you watched it now.
The idea behind it was pretty good, though, I think.
Well, it
probably could have been executed better, but yeah.
Oh, wait, you're talking about the marriage, aren't you?
Yes.
I thought you were meaning, like, literally they split Rory and Amy up in different parts, like
No, not like
he's in a different part and she's in a different part of the planet, which to me felt like a callback to the old Dalek stories where the Doctor and Companion always got split up. But yeah, splitting up the marriage
what,
was
10 minutes
forced.
tops?
Yeah, see, the thing about splitting up the marriage is, I think it was brought up, he waited how many thousands of years for her? It's like they're not just going to, break up because the at the drop of a hat after that. It's like after all they've been through, the only thing that should be able to break them up is a bullet.
See, I think my problem with the marriage, and the problems there, is he's had a season where they've been married. He's had all that time to develop, and about a half season since River was discovered to be their daughter. He's had all that time to build up them as a couple, build up Amy's tensions about River and about learning. Like, when does she learn she can't have children? And when is that? Or sometime last season?
No, I'm pretty sure she learned it while Moffat was writing Pond Life.
Yeah.
Really?
She pretty much learned it
Well,
all.
Chibnall wrote Pond Life.
Because it would have featured it never featured in last season.
Yeah.
Really?
It was
Okay,
never
so
a
it
plot
was
point.
completely pulled out of the ass.
Yeah.
Well, basically, but he still had all this time to build them up and use okay, the very nature of television is that you have a lot of different stories to be building your characters. And the fact he didn't do that speaks of just laziness. He's had all this time to be building up the marriage problems beforehand. Instead, he shoves it all into one episode.
If they had foreshadowed it into the last half of the season, like the whole first half of the last season was, does Amy love the Doctor? No, it's definitely Rory.
Mm-hmm.
So to turn around and be like, oh, they're gonna break up, it's just like it screams contrivance in 1,000 different ways.
Yeah, it's just that he's had this time, he didn't use it, and so he crams in basically the divorce, the aftermath, and the get back together all in a space of like 10 minutes, and it just doesn't work. And it's not very well written either, which is another problem.
Right.
Mm.
I mean, she, as someone pointed out, Rory comments at one point, "Do you know how hard it was me waiting 2,000 years for you?" And she says, "Do you know how hard it was thinking you didn't love me?" or something like that. And like, those problems aren't equatable. I'm sorry, but worrying if someone loves you is not the same as waiting 2,000 years in solitude, specifically for someone you love.
Bit of a Rose moment.
Not to interrupt that, but does this mean we're done with the pros?
I have one small, and might be a personal pro, and that's this episode did not have River Song in it.
I noticed that, and I was really shocked because, especially the way the last season's been, you really would have thought the Daleks would have brought River into it.
Oh, River, yeah. I don't like her, so I was glad she wasn't there.
So you agree with me on that, pro?
Yeah.
Pro, River wasn't there.
Yes.
Can we add another pro? Tegan wasn't there.
That's going too far, Doctor. I think even if you said pro, Rose wasn't there. That's still one Doctor too far back.
Yeah.
Apparently, Rose is going to be in this season, though. So.
Really?
Oh, God. Please,
it's
no.
a rumor that I've heard.
I thought we were done with Rose.
Hey, Rose and Billy Piper and Matt Smith have already had a sex scene, so it's pretty clear that she's sleeping with all the Doctors.
Yeah.
I just hope River doesn't find out.
Please don't invite any first Doctor Rose.
I expect John Barrowman to come back because that Captain Jack just won't.
You expect Captain Jack and 11 to be sleeping together? Is that?
Well, you never know with Jack.
Maybe if Russell T Davies was writing the script.
Yeah, but no, just because of the popularity of Jack Harkness and the fact that Torchwood isn't really going at the moment, you'd almost expect a cameo by that in the current stuff. But I would thought we'd have been done with Rose and Mickey and the rest of the 10 era companions.
Well, the problem for me with bringing back.
Rose and Tennant are Rose still has a Tennant in her universe, so it would be a good way to have a 10 and 11 crossover that's not really a 10 and 11 crossover.
Now, the problem for me, and this is, I haven't actually heard any rumors of Rose coming back, so I don't know how true it is. But if it were, my problem with that would be that if you had left Rose where you left her in Doomsday, I think was the episode, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
The fact they brought her back diminishes that ending incredibly, and it was very, very pointless, I felt. Doing it again would be just why? Why would you? What purpose is there to bring back this companion?
It's beating a dead horse.
There's few companions that need revisiting. Like, even a companion like,
you know who they need to bring back? Susan.
I was actually going to mention that.
Regenerated.
Yes. I was going to mention that. Yes, they need to bring back Susan.
Actually, Susan and Jenny should meet after they both regenerated and show up.
I actually thought Jenny was going to get like a... I thought Jenny was going to get a spin-off for some reason. I remember when I first saw that episode, I was like...
That would have made sense with all the spin-offs they were doing.
Yeah, I was like... The way she just sort of buggers off, I was like, okay, where's this going? She's like, just left and that's it. We don't get to see what happens to her.
I think it at one point, but I think the BBC said, okay, no, you have 3 shows currently, that's enough.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a joke or serious, but someone was like, well, Russell T Davies tried to get one too many spin-offs and they cut him off because it's like, but I think I don't know. But either way, I'm like there is some truth to that either way, because there were 3 Doctor Who shows running at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Actually, there were a couple more, but the other 2 were informational.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not counting Doctor Who Confidential and the Torchwood equivalent.
But, yeah, there were 3 shows, and really, I think that was about as much as their schedule could handle.
Yeah, plus, one for adults, one for kids, and one for the family, so...
Okay, last call for pros? Anybody?
The one thing I thought was very, very good. Okay, all I've been hearing about this episode before it aired was Moffat was going to try to make the Daleks scary again. That was his whole deal, is he wanted to make the Daleks legitimate. I think he succeeded. He really built a really great atmosphere throughout the episode, and for all its faults, which we're going to discuss, it has that going for it. It made the Daleks very scary. After Victory, they were just like... whatever. Here, and, I mean, the scene with Rory in the deserted room, the Daleks have never been as scary as that.
That was actually, yes.
There's also, I think the last Angry Geek brought this up, which I hadn't really thought of. It's like, for a long time, the Daleks have been running around, like, you look at, what was the one before Doomsday? I forget the name of it, but it was like, someone simply mentions the Doctor's name and the Daleks start running around terrified.
Mm-hmm.
There's only so far you can take that seriously before you start laughing at before they become the clowns. You take him out of their systems, they can start going back like, hey, why haven't we invaded Earth yet?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a larger thing. Someone actually pointed out that you can kind of see this train starting with his Moffat's first season, actually, where he's de-emphasizing the role of the Doctor. You had Russell, who was making the Doctor this ultra-powerful, everyone's heard of him, he is basically this godlike character. And what you see with season 5, where, especially in the last episode, that speech that Matt gives in Panopticon Opens is important because it's a Tennant speech that scares off all the villains, and then they all come back to lock him up. And that's a major thing because it's the first time the villains aren't scared of the Doctor. Then in season 6, we have the whole plotline be the Doctor goes back into hiding, where he fakes his own death and becomes this unknown force again. And now, in this one, we see the Daleks don't know who the Doctor is. They've forgotten, and not to give too much away, but it becomes a bit of an important thing in the next episode. Just a bit. So it's an ongoing train of de-emphasizing the Doctor.
I still think the fact that he showed up and he's like, oh, I was erased from your memory banks because, you knowing me caused problems. So the first thing I'm going to do when we meet again is like, hey, you remember me? I'm the Doctor.
Well, but the way it's played though is very. They ask, "Who are you?" I'm the Doctor. Don't you know me? Doctor Who? We don't know. Who are you?
A Dalek would never do, because what does a Doctor do when? What does a Dalek do when an unknown person shows up on their ship? They exterminate. They don't ask them who they are.
Why? I think the Daleks are a little cleverer than that. Like they ask around just a bit.
But how clever? You know what? They ran around in circles asking who he was over and over again while he escaped. That's not very clever.
Meh. Well, no, I just mean though that.
Well, at the same time, on the same coin, wouldn't you want to know who on earth this person was that just got onto your ship?
But not to the point of letting him escape while I repeatedly asked him who he was. The Daleks are supposed to be geniuses. They're not,
I don't know. I don't know about geniuses, but they are very computerized in their thinking. I believe is the general rule.
They're supposed to be very, very logical. They're not geniuses in some respects, but when it comes to strategy, planning, they're supposed to be geniuses.
Well, I think really the scene was just supposed to show us the Daleks have forgotten the Doctor, and I can't think of a better way they could have shown it.
The scene was supposed to be an excuse for them to put the words Doctor Who into the first episode of the season.
Well, a little bit, but it was more that he wants to emphasize that the new status quo is the Daleks don't know who the Doctor is now. And that's basically it's the whole point of the episode, is that the Daleks have now forgotten who the Doctor is. And he's probably going to play with this later on, and most likely it's going to be a big thing. I see this all being a very big thing for the 50th anniversary. And I think we can begin to see him setting that up as early as now.
Oh, I should bring out one more pro. It was nice. This is really, I don't count the Pandorica Opens. This was really Moffat's first real Dalek experience, because Victory of the Daleks was, there was some Dalekness in it, but it wasn't, there was no combat. There wasn't a fight with the Daleks. This is the first time that Moffat
Victory
really
to me felt
Daleks
very much like a
threat.
prologue. Like it was,
yeah,
this is what we're going to do. And then he was like, oh shoot, that didn't go very well. We'll just put him to the back burner for a little while.
Right.
And yeah, that's definitely, you're definitely right.
This was really, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but as a fan of the Daleks, I was glad to see them bring it in with a bang, with a whole bunch of Daleks, some new technology, because when you have a race that keeps reinventing itself, then going back in time to make itself stronger, it makes sense that you have new technology coming up every time they do that. In which case we have these human shells with Dalek robots inside them.
And I thought the addition to the mythos of the Daleks was very nice. Like, making, the Dalek puppets and having that, which also relates to, like, early Dalek experiments with, like, the human factor and all of that. So I do kind of wish there was a Dalek that was really insane and not just inert. Like, it would have been nice to have, like, I don't want to draw too much, attention to the word Asylum, but, an equivalent to the Joker, a Dalek that just destroys randomly, and his insanity is the fact that he won't obey. And, that would be the perfect character to have in a second. And I think it'd be a fascinating thing to have a Dalek character, because we've had the Daleks. We've never had a Dalek be a character. And I think it'd be kind of interesting to work with that. Do you count Sek and Khan? Oh, I forgot about them. Well, they were just Khan, yeah. I would count as a character. Sek was just, until he became humanized, it was just a basic Dalek.
Technically,
Khan was, but even Khan was like, they only dealt with him for one episode, and he was just gone. But it'd be nice to have a Dalek that was a little, like, a little insane, and have that be a recurring character. I think that'd be interesting. Or even if he wasn't recurring, even if it was just like, off the walls, batshit insanity, and the Doctor only barely survived him, that would have definitely done the job of making the Dalek scary again. And then, they blew up the planet, but, this is a freaking Dalek. You know what Daleks can do. He could come back later, he could not, and it's always a shadow hanging over your head. Yeah, I think... this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think, we've had the Daleks and the Cybermen for years and years and years now. it'd be really interesting if the show decided to do something really different with them. Like, something, give one of them a character. Like, in the comics, in the early 80s, there was, one of the writers came up with Croton the Cyberman, which was a Cyberman that retained his emotions, but instead of, like, just blowing up like the series ones do, he just kind of brooded for a lot, and it became, it was apparently, I haven't read him, but it was apparently a very, very well thought out, well designed character. It'd be interesting for the show to do something like that, and do something like Oswin is a great step in this direction, because Oswin is kind of this Dalek with character, who is retaining her humanity.
I think it would be awesome when she turns around and becomes the companion on Christmas, if she is actually literally, I was a Dalek, but I got better, and I still have all these, Dalek tendencies and everything.
Of course, technically, because we're told the companion is named Clara, so.
Oh, okay. So it's not the same.
It's not the same character. We don't know. We don't know how she's related yet.
Okay.
So it's.
I was gonna say they've done that before with other characters as well.
Yeah,
like Martha played one of the people in.
Martha was the first person killed in the season finale of the season before she arrived.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be her.
I think the chick that played Amy was also in a Tennant episode as well.
She wasn't killed. She was converted into a semi-Cyberman.
And then, even in the classic series, Colin Baker was in a Fifth Doctor serial a couple years before he became Doctor.
Yeah, he was Maxwell, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he shot the Doctor, which is a good way to get his job.
Some would take that as a metaphor on what Colin would actually do to the show once he took over.
Hey.
It wasn't Colin's fault. I blame Michael Gray.
Yes, yeah. I blame Eric Sayward. Like, as far as that whole camp goes, I'm in the one that says Eric Sayward is at the fault here.
Which is the one who is sleeping with Baker's wife?
That's Michael Gray. Yeah. But here's the thing.
And it's technically Baker's ex-wife.
See, not just Sayward. I tend to, in that whole debacle, I blame Sayward and Levine. But honestly, that's a discussion for another thing.
I don't blame Baker, because we've seen Baker do stuff in Big Finish stuff, and
even in the episodes, I think Baker is just a joy. Like, he's really great as the Doctor.
Yeah, from what I hear, he's really great, but he's given shit to.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I mean, honestly, all I've seen of him is reviews by Nash. But from what I hear, he pulled off. He worked with what he had.
Yes,
to the best of anyone's
for his run on TV. Yeah, he did the best he had, and I actually have a DVD of, I think, one of the Big Finish audio adventures, and it's the DVD with still images made for the specific story, and I thought it was really good, and it had Cybermen.
I have to find it ironic that apparently Five sacrificed himself to save his companion's life. He regenerated and turned around and tried to kill his companion immediately.
A little bit.
Like, I just died to save your life. Now I'm going to kill you.
I saw myself from the mirror.
Yeah, I mean, but if you watch like Revelation of the Daleks, or even actually, if
Netflix would let me watch them, I would love to.
Actually, if you really want a great way to get to see how Baker works with the character, watch Terror of the Vervoid, which is a crap episode, but man, he's just charming in it. He is so charming, and it's worth watching just to see him work with the character at that point. But anyway, so Asylum.
John Nathan Turner as well.
Yeah, John Nathan Turner.
I think Nathan Turner had kind of gone a little too far by that point.
Do we have straight up cons, or are we going to skip straight to rants and tangents?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure
do we have straight up, this is a negative without a rant.
Was that
I didn't think the relationship was written well. But that's the thing.
True, yeah. I think we covered all the bases on that, but I agree.
Mm-hmm.
The weird thing is, when we were bringing it up before, I actually thought the way they did that was actually, now that I think about it, I hate to say this, but the way they split up Rose and Mickey was actually better. because
Yeah,
I actually
you're
like
right.
that because
You're
Mickey
really
got
right.
his time to Mickey like got his shining moment there. Really, I thought
It
I was
depends
like
on what
really
you're gonna
happy
see.
the way they did that.
Well, what I liked about
mean-
the Rose in Mickey one is that every episode it's changed in some way. Even though he wasn't a big character in season 1 or series 1, there was a progression in what they were doing. You know, he was a different character in Boomtown than he was in Aliens in London.
The idea of their relationship was kind of ruined for me in episode 1 when the doctor said, "By the way, time travel," and she said, "Bye, injured boyfriend. I'm going to run off with strange man and go time travel." To me, that effectively ended their relationship, but Mickey thought there was still something there.
But
If anything,
Meanwhile, the doctor would assign the title of Rose's boyfriend to every male they met from there on.
yeah, but
9 obviously had no you know, 9 was certain that Rose was not going to be with Mickey at the end of the season.
right. But I mean, it's still though that there's progression in their relationship. They just Boomtown is very much half of it is basically spent on them talking. Where are we at right now?
What? Oh, okay.
And then when he joins the crew in the second season, there's a definite progression for his character. And with Amy and Rory,
he became a tin dog.
yeah. Well, what I mean, but once he realizes this in school reunion, he makes a definite move in Rise of Steel, Age of the Cybermen. There's a Age of Steel, Rise of the Cybermen.
This is terrible. I had a YouTube clip of we're in a car, but I specifically did not save that one for the podcast because I was sure we wouldn't.
Yeah, right.
And now
But
look
anyway,
what we're
my
talking
larger
about.
point is just that
New
with
lesson.
Rory
Never
and
get
Amy.
perfect.
With Rory and Amy, they don't change. They either are this or they're that. We never see a progression. They're just one way or the other, and that's what really kills this for me. It's either Amy loves Rory, Amy hates Rory, Amy loves Rory, Amy is not sure about Rory. It's just like,
I mean, it kind of, the way you describe that makes sense because Amy's character is a very extreme, irrational, emotional character in ways like that, but at the same time, if she kicked him out and there was obviously something big enough that Rory was willing to go ahead and get the divorce papers and everything, obviously something big went down, and there had to be, even if she had a motive for it, she did something to kick him out, and he should be either upset about her lying to him or upset about whatever she actually did to kick him out. Like, it can't just be, oh, that's why you did it? Well, then we're perfectly fine.
But it's also, we should have seen her kick him out. And we never actually saw it. I mean, yes, the last...
We saw him leave,
the last Pond Life was
with no
flashback.
audio.
The last Pond Life was without words. We didn't actually see what happened. We didn't know what happened at that point. We just saw a quick thing to tell us, oh, wait, they're not together anymore. We should have seen what brought them to break them apart, and we didn't. They just told us about it.
Right.
Yeah, that's what actually makes the Rose Mickey one better because they actually had a thing where they basically just had Mickey go, well, you're with the doctor now, so fuck you.
Right. And it's like even throughout the next several years, Mickey tried to get back together with him, and then he was like, oh, by the way, there's a clone of me, and Mickey's like, well, there's only one other black person in Britain on this show, so I'm gonna go get together with her.
Yeah, that felt a bit contrived.
What the hell happened there too?
That was stupid. I hated that they paired off Mickey and Martha for no real apparent reason other than we're black.
Well, it also might have been.
Would've been funny if they partnered it with
we're also two extraneous characters that have really loose ends too.
True.
But it's more like, okay, that was out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I would also point out Zordon is a racist. Whoops. Didn't think about that. Oh, yeah.
Well, see, people talk about that, but it's like, damn, I forget his real name, but it's like he requested to be the Black Ranger so he would be more recognizable. So it's like all the fault people put on the showmakers, he requested that, so you can't really blame them. He wanted to be the Black Ranger.
Yeah, but what
It makes
about
it sound like
the...
Samuel L.
He
Jackson.
thought people wouldn't recognize him unless he was the Black Ranger.
Yeah, because like I've heard the same sort of stuff about with Star Wars, like people giving them crap for giving Samuel L. Jackson a purple lightsaber when apparently he requested that.
Yeah, it's like the Mace Windu was specifically created because Samuel L. Jackson wanted to be a badass Jedi in the new movie.
Apparently, like the only due to a DVD commentary I was listening to for Revenge of the Sith, it said that the only two things he wanted were a purple lightsaber and a spectacular death.
And I think he. I'm trying to remember. I think he requested to be bald because that's part of his gig where every character he plays has a different defining visual feature, so they can all be told apart. I think he has to be bald, but I'm not sure about that.
But we're neither talking about Power Rangers or Star Wars here.
This is true.
Talk about racism.
Oh, let's get back to whatever related to Asylum. Oh, we were talking about Rory and Amy. God, that was hard to piece together.
Yeah, we should rename the blog something like Tangential Occlusion or something. Anyway.
We tangented on a tangent.
Yes.
So do we want to skip to another tangent? Because I would love to talk about Scarrow.
Oh yes, please.
So, for those not aware of the history of Scarrow, first the 7th Doctor tricked Davros into blowing it up. Then the 8th Doctor retconned it into it not really being Scarrow. And then somewhere between the 8th and 9th...
Where do you get that retcon information?
I've seen it was in one of the novels apparently. I think I've seen several people bring it up. I don't remember.
Yeah,
War of the Daleks, probably.
It was either a novel or an audio.
I think it's War of the Daleks that tries to fix it. And War of the Daleks is apparently crap,
right.
so...
I also hear it's crap, yes. Then the 9th Doctor blew it up in between the movie and season 1. And then, I guess, when 11 restarted the universe, it came with a new Scarrow, but possibly not a new Gallifrey. We don't know yet.
Yeah,
well,
that's
okay.
kind of a...
Yeah, that's actually a good question.
And I've heard people say it was because Gallifrey was time-locked when Scarrow wasn't because of the way that 9 ended the war, but
Well,
I call bullshit on that because they were both supposed to be time-locked in the first place, so why would only Gallifrey be erased from ever and Scarrow be...
See, I would argue, though, that it was only Gallifrey that was time-locked, although I don't believe they've said either way. If they have, point me to the episode and I'll...
They said the whole Time War was time-locked.
And
yeah,
Yeah.
the entire...
But if the final
and then he
final battle...
He blew up Gallifrey and Scarrow at the same time,
Well,
supposedly.
if the final battle was on Gallifrey, then only that part of the battle would have been time locked. As in,
Well,
if the all-out war was on Gallifrey, then that's what would have been time locked.
Were you the one who made that post on the forums that I read?
No, I don't
discussing
believe
that?
so. I was the one
Or
that actually
somebody
asked the
else?
question.
Okay.
I think.
I remember you were heavily involved in the conversation.
Right.
No,
I couldn't
but
remember.
that's false because the End of Time Part 2 mentions that they're on Gallifrey, they're only at the outskirts of the war.
Ah, well, really though, I mean, this is my thing on that is that Moffat. Well, okay. The Doctor Who writers in general write what the audience can remember. And as far as continuity goes, that's usually what they do. I mean, that's their attitude.
No writer Doctor Who, it's like no writer Doctor Who has ever had specifically believes in continuity the way that every other fandom in the world does.
Right. Well, really, though, that probably what's happened is that Moffat thought, I wonder if we can use Scarrow again. I wonder if audiences will specifically remember it was destroyed. Probably not. Let's use Scarrow.
Well, I think that was also the point of the Big Bang. He wanted to be able to put anything in the universe that he wanted, so he simply restarted the whole universe.
Or, like, really, and his whole view of the program is, like, he even said at one point, I don't believe a time travel show can have continuity. He doesn't really care about it. And so, I don't really criticize him for that, because it's just like, he's kind of right. Like, it is a time travel show, things can happen. In certain instances, like, we can't all of a sudden have Gallifrey again because that's been such a major part of the show for the last 5 years. They have to explain it. something like
Yeah, but
Starro, it's just like,
yeah.
um,
I'm like, I think it would be really like they might do this with the 12th Doctor. Just turn around and be like, you know what? The new audience has gone, 7, 8, maybe 9 years by that point without Gallifrey. Let's bring the Time Lords back and see if they're as shocked as they were when the second Doctor had to deal with Time Lords.
personally, what I would really like to see, and this is just me, I would really like to see. Okay, in the 80s, Romana, who's the only Time Lord companion, stayed in E-Space.
Technically, Susan should have been a
Yes,
Time
Susan
Lord,
is.
but yes.
We really don't know if Susan was a
I forgot about
Time Lord or
Susan, right.
But Romana was the only companion that we see regenerating and all that. So,
but she was left in
by
E-Space.
committing suicide apparently several times in one day.
I would love to see them at one point bring the Time Lords back and have it they came from E-Space. Like, say, maybe in the interim between Warrior's Gate and present, a group of Time Lords went to E-Space and were thus excluded from the whole Time War, and they are able to bring back.
It's like we've seen that, Daleks escaped by going into the void. Time Lords escaped by going into another universe and were subsequently eaten by a living planet. So there's holes that they could have slipped through,
Charged back,
but they actually haven't been used. Which is actually the exact opposite of what Star Wars has done. Star Wars turned around and be like, oh, let's use every single loophole a Jedi could have possibly used to survive the Purge and bring them back into a later story. Whereas Doctor Who has these loopholes built in, but hasn't used it.
And I think the reason for that is that they don't want to use the Time Lords because the Time Lords can be very restrictive and can do a lot of very bad things to the program. And that was probably the whole reason why Russell T Davies... I mean, not only did Russell T Davies kill the Time Lords, he killed off the possibility of using the Time Lords by making them corrupt and monsters. He made the Doctor diametrically opposed to the Time Lords specifically so we couldn't use them.
I don't think he did that because from what I see, everything I see of the second Doctor, the fourth Doctor, the third Doctor, they're pretty much butting heads or completely disagreeing with one another.
But it's also that...
completely opposed to one another every time I see
But the thing is what's different about the Time Lords in the classic series and the Time Lords here is that the Doctor still acknowledged them as a part of the universe, and he doesn't even in End of Time. In End of Time, he says, "No, I'm just going to kill you all. You deserve that right now."
Right, because in the classic series, he was basically like, you know what? If I oppose you guys, I lose everything that makes me who I am. I lose my TARDIS, possibly the ability to regenerate. Versus here, he's like, if I let you guys come back, I'm dooming the universe to war or destruction, because that was their plan. He was like, no, you're going back where you... Plus, by that point, he had been running around God knows how many years as the only Time Lord. He was used to being Time Lord Victorious, as he made it a plot point to call himself, as he became even more arrogant than he had.
But I think really they don't... At least Moffat and Davies, who are big fans of the classic series, I think... Okay, in the classic series, really the only time the Time Lords were any good was when they were written by Robert Holmes. Any other time, they were either dull or just kind of there. Like, especially in the Davison years and the Baker years, the Time Lords are just kind of really, really boring. And that's probably why they didn't want to use them. It's because there was nothing interesting about them.
I think the most exciting thing these Time Lords did was say, hey, Ford, let's go back in time and start a time war by trying to kill the Daleks.
Deadly Assassin is like my favorite episode, and that's set on Gallifrey. After that, it's I like Invasion of Time, but the rest of them are they're just really dull, and I think that's why they don't want to use them anymore.
Yeah, specifically I'm just referring is like, of course, then again, Genesis of the Daleks is supposed to be something Time Lords would never have done until the Daleks became a major threat. Anyway, that was against every aspect of their character that was known.
So really, the entire Time War is the fault of the Celestial Intervention Agency. If you think about it.
They get their hands into everything.
So that covers Starro. Which I guess I agree with you, though I do believe, if they're going to take something out, bring it back, take it out, bring it back, they shouldn't just wave a hand at it. It's like, oh, it's there. Now it's not. Oh, it's there.
Yeah, it's like the Doctor should have at least, had an emotional response to, oh shit, Scarro's back, or, he'd be like, damn, I should have realized Scarro, some sort of response. Otherwise, he's just like, oh yeah, I'm on Scarro. No, no emotional reaction. See, I liked it, but then again, I was a fan. I was happy to see all of the spin-offs coming together for a big climax.
Yeah. And the big climax is being down for us.
I mean, I'm not not that I hate. I mean, not that I thought it was flawless, because I was also like, why are they pulling this out of their ass? Davros should have been built up over time. Over the season, Davros should have been built up. But he is, he never appeared until, he got pulled out of his ass and stuff.
Well, I think, really, it's just, I thought the setup, the first part, is wonderful. And then the next part is just absolute crap. I mean, they begin it with an anticlimax, and then it just goes downhill from there. The scenes with Davros and the Doctor, brilliant. Rest of it, meh. And I thought, especially, I don't like what they did with Donna. I thought it was very, very just self.
Very handmade.
No, very much. Oh, look, it was very self-congratulatory. Like, yay! Look how wonderful and awesome we all are. Aren't we just awesome? Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And we'll tow the Earth home.
And what's even like, I would say the build up throughout the season relating to Donna about that was worse than that, because there was a lot of like, especially I keep Rose and River's reactions to Donna were basically like, oh my god, you're the companion who's going to have something horrible happen to her. And it's like, it was just so completely, every time I watched one of those, I was just like, it's
well, I just don't like that they... The ending to her character is without reason, without purpose. It's just like, we've developed you to be this really cool, really deep, complex character, and we're just going to take all that away for no reason.
Right.
Well,
that just bothered me.
I mean, the actress was leaving. The only alternative they had was to kill her.
No, they could have just said,
Yeah, I mean,
Donna leaves the TARDIS. There. Actress
I was
gone.
gonna say, yeah, they could.
I think the tragedy was done effectively, but I think it could have been probably pulled off better, a little less sudden, a little less arbitrary.
Yes. And that's...
and then, of course, Diamanda Hagen brought this up. They said, if she saw anything that reminded her of the Doctor, her head would basically implode. So she sees the Doctor, the TARDIS, the Master. None of that happens. She has a lightning spell. That
annoys me, but that's a separate issue from the season 4 finale, the series 4 finale.
Right, that's an issue with End of Time.
Yes.
But with season 4, it's just like, okay, remember how many times they reference the bees? The fact that there are bees missing, and the fact that the planets are missing? That's such a minor part of the last episode, and the only time we ever get a reference to Donna's end is when they're accidentally called Dr. Donna at one point, and that's supposed to be her lead-in.
Oh, I don't know. There were several points where she referred to herself as just being a temp.
Well, but I mean, like, it's never... We never get, throughout the whole season... It should have been foreshadowed, one, that she would end up inhabiting the Doctor's conscience, two, that that's not possible. Or that she would die if that happened. They never foreshadowed that. And that should have been brought up.
It's like they foreshadowed a lot that something horrible would happen to her, and they also brought up the fact that, there was a whole thing, a major theme of the season was that she was much more important than she thought she was, but then again, it's easy to look at that and say, they're trying to say that about everybody or every companion, and that would be, a sensible moral, but they're specifically talking about that event, and that's why...
I would also bring up is that they constantly mentioned there's something on your back.
So poorly, but...
Well, they only mentioned that, I thought, for the one season. I mean, the one
No,
episode.
they mentioned it for a couple times before that episode.
Too.
I think the first time they mentioned it was, oh, God. The psychic people before the volcano went up. I think that was one of the first couple times they mentioned.
I really have to watch that whole season again to get all the episodes.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in ages. Well, I haven't seen any of the Tennant seasons in ages. I rewatched the Eccleston one not too long ago, but the Tennant, I'm just not as huge on those years as I am the rest of the show.
I'm sorry, I'm a Tennant fanatic person.
Mm-hmm.
What I've actually noticed, I've been going through doing text commentaries and whatever. What I've noticed is Tennant, the way he acts out the Doctor and his lines. He's my favorite Doctor because of those. But when I look at his adventures, there's a lot of wonky shit that's going on that I could take or leave. It's just the way he portrays.
That's a lot of how I feel. Tennant himself is very, very good, but the rest of the show, I'm just.
And
hey, look, we're actually tying this in. Yes.
Going on that aren't as much.
Ever had a happy season finale?
Yeah. Yeah, he always left it on downer.
Yeah, that's weird. Even went out like, well,
he went up a big happy bang.
I'm regenerating. Ta-da!
They did. The Doctor was going to die. They saved his life, and they brought Jack back from the dead. So that's and they destroyed all the Daleks with a hand wave. So that's kind of a happy ending.
And when the Doctor actually dies, he's just like, oh, well.
But yeah, Tennant just never
too
had
bad.
a time.
Season 3. Well, they prevented the fact that the world was taken over,
but the Master.
But then the Master died, and the Doctor
Mark
forgave
left.
him for some really stupid reason.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of tangent there. Okay, I hate the fact. Last of the Time Wars is probably my least favorite season finale of all of them. He's just like, I forgive you, and he forgives the Master.
And what
almost completely forgetting the fact that the Master killed half the universe. Like, if you ever watched Metropolis, you cannot watch Last of the Time Lords in the same light. Because the Master kills almost half the universe in that episode.
Which episode?
Legopolis.
Legopolis, okay.
Fourth Doctor's Regeneration.
Sorry, you kind of cut out on my end a little bit.
Oh, sorry. It's the Fourth Doctor's final episode, where the Master accidentally unleashes a force of entropy, meaning that the universe...
I know, that destroys a third of the universe.
Okay, I was like, even in just that episode, he murders at least a billion, a billion people in the present and billions from the future.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and the Doctor's just like, well, you're all I've got, so I forgive you.
It is kind of what he's saying. At this point, he's lost his entire race, and anybody.
I guess the Doctor's also looking at it. I've destroyed billions of Daleks and millions of Time Lords myself.
Yeah, he's not exactly he doesn't have the cleanest of hands anymore.
He's just looking at this is the closest equivalent he has to a best bud from childhood. As sick as that really sounds, said out loud.
It is. It is. It's true though. You think about it.
And not to mention, the Doctor at that point had actually undone a lot of the damage the Master had done to Earth.
True.
So it's very easy to forgive him because I've undone it already.
I think I watched the episode probably twice. How did he undo it? Like, what did he do to undo it?
He did when the Paradox machine was destroyed. The Paradox snapped, and everything got reset. It's a giant, huge reset hand wavy button.
However, I will say that's of the reset buttons that he uses, it's actually the one that makes the most sense.
Correct.
So it actually doesn't bother me.
So they're going with the whole deal that because they were time travelers, they remember it, basically.
Because
I think so, yeah.
Anybody who has contact with Chronons remembers it.
It's the Eye of the Storm effect. Because they were in the middle of all they remembered.
The people who are at ground zero essentially are the only ones who will remember everything that happened.
Anybody outside the unit shield unit ship didn't remember.
Unit and Torchwood and
no.
Well, the one guy from Torchwood. Just Jack.
The helicarrier. I swear somebody stole a page from Marvel and said, "Let's use this for Doctor Who."
Yeah. Very Shield-esque.
But back to Series 7.
So do we want to talk any more on that, or do we want to go on to any of the segments we discussed?
Yeah. Were we still on cons or con rants or?
We were on rants now. If I don't know if we.
All right. I've got a little rant here.
Okay.
The very concept of the Asylum of the Daleks. Excuse me, but didn't the Time War supposedly wipe out all Daleks in existence? With the exception of the ones that were revealed to be hidden later.
Yeah.
I think the Dalek. I think the
that should have technically
the Time Lords are gone. The Daleks are gone. There's just the Doctor, and then we start finding Daleks. But where in this whole gigantic math did this whole planet full of insane Daleks not come into any mathematical equation?
And that goes into the whole restarting of the universe and Moffat.
And I think it's also
still part of that same issue, and it's still even almost larger than Scarrow because it's a key portion of the plot.
Yeah.
But the thing is that
it's like you can guess at how many Daleks are on Scarrow and how many are from which paradigm, but you can clearly see on the Asylum that classic Who Daleks are there.
Who should have been obliterated with the Time War.
But
in fact, they like I said in my summary, they mentioned deliberately Dalek Wars from the second.
They mentioned which was Power of the Dalek. I think that's it.
They mentioned. They
mentioned ones from specific episodes directly.
Did they mention Earth?
No, they mentioned Vulcan and I think Mechanus, but I could be wrong there.
Which one is that?
That was the Dalek Master Plan.
It's like there was the possibility that Genesis of the Daleks pushed them back enough that the invasion of Earth never happened. But if so, then that would have affected things that from the second and third Doctors as well, not just from the first.
Well, yeah. Well, this established war still happened, but at the same time, those Daleks shouldn't exist because the Time War should have taken care of them.
Well, it's either that universe reset. There's three options really. If we want to look at it just in universe, not with, because the real option is Moffat didn't care and wrote it anyway. But in universe,
that's the actual thing. Yes.
In universe, I think we can explain it either as galaxies reset, new rules. 2, history changes. Doctor changes history, new rules. 3, the Time War actually didn't obliterate all the Daleks, just time-locked a good many of them. And this wasn't included. So either way you want to take that, I think there's enough leeway, but...
But also, the Dalek from the episode Dalek apparently actually searched the entire galaxy in a heartbeat to try and find any other Daleks, and there was no Asylum Daleks, obviously, because he said there is nobody.
But at the same time, he failed to realize that the Dalek Emperor was, at the outskirts of the solar system, building a freaking army of Daleks. So he obviously
I guess actually, that's true too.
Well. There were millions of Daleks in the same solar system that he couldn't.
Yes, but they were deliberately staying hidden.
That's also true.
From other Daleks, so that doesn't sound
anything.
But at the same time, though, it's just like no one's going to. Assuming that you're a casual viewer of Doctor Who, you haven't rewatched these episodes, you're not going to remember anything beyond the last year. I mean, I think Terrence Dix, who script edited the whole of Pertwee's tenure, had a rule that if it was in the last season, you were free to reference it. Any further back, and you had to make a point to explain it in the episode. And I think that's really what Moffat is doing, is that he just forgets anything, or he, not forgets, but doesn't bother to include or really reference anything from further back. And I don't think he really has to.
Scarrow hasn't existed since the late 80s, though, so if he's referencing Scarrow, he's going a little farther back.
Well, Scarrow is also just that, I mean, there are also key concepts that you're free.
Scarrow was referenced in the movie in the 90s, so Scarrow existed in the 90s.
But Scarrow, though, I mean...
I'll keep saying it. Scarrow is Doctor Who's equivalent of Kenny.
Yeah, You bastards!
And I would also mention that
my
I also
God,
talked about this.
Look, Scarrow! Yeah.
I would also mention that I brought this up earlier, is that they say that they quote unquote destroyed Scarrow, but what do they mean by destroy? Do they mean that they blew it up from the inside out, or do they mean that they just wiped the surface again? Because they have wiped the surface so many times with Scarrow that you should know by now that there's potholes where Daleks are always hiding.
In theory, he did the same thing to Scarrow that he did to Gallifrey, and we don't see Time Lords crawling out from under Gallifrey either.
Rock going, oh, that wasn't so bad, was it?
Like, whatever he did, Time Lords couldn't regenerate from it, so I imagine it could, destroy Dalekanium.
Well,
So,
End of
and mind
Time established the fact that Time Lords weren't destroyed; they were time locked, and so Gallifrey still exists.
They were time locked there because that was during the war. They tried to leave the war, before it ended to go to Earth, and he's like, no, go back to the war where you will eventually be destroyed.
Yes.
Okay,
What
and
happened
this is me not being overtly familiar with Tennant because I haven't seen them since I first watched them.
Let me explain then. What was happening was, in the Time War, they were using time travel to avert certain situations. You have two time-traveling races going to war with each other, fighting helter-skelter across the cosmos. Now, eventually, this got to be a bad thing. If one particular battle went bad, someone could just go back in time, give them new information, tell them do this instead of doing that, and then, of course, the other side does exactly the same thing. Eventually, this had to stop, because time was being rewritten every other second. Wow. I wouldn't necessarily say second, but you get the idea. So someone came up with the colossally.
I think as something I read did mention that the universe was restarted several times during the Time War, so obviously shit was getting out of hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
The universe was getting bent. It was folded, spindled, mutilated, and dealt worse than the U.S. Postal Service. So
My mom works for that.
So someone came up with the idea of sealing it, so that when you are within the Time War, you could only time travel to effect within the Time War. You could not travel outside of the Time War. Obviously, this occurred after someone decided to go back to the beginning of Time Lord history and bring back Rassilon, which I believe we will all agree was probably a colossally bad idea.
Depends on what kind of mood
Rassilon's
Rassilon
technically
is
still alive. I mean, if you look at the classic series, he's technically alive.
Yeah, they could have just woken him up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Woken him up, forced him to maybe, possibly. Either way, bring him into this was a bad
it was in
idea.
the Five Doctors. We had this completely ridiculous and just totally let me seal you in a box forever.
Yeah.
And again, it depends upon his mood, because he doesn't seem quite that bad in the Five Doctors. He's just like,
No.
how about you guys? No,
Anyway,
we're fine.
so what the time
How
lock
much of the
is
time looks
basically-
change over time?
I like to think he just got bored and just like, let me just start sealing random people in a box. That'll be nice.
So essentially what
No.
time locking is basically keeping the events in there to themselves without affecting the rest of the universe.
Uh-huh. I didn't remember him, like, it actually being determined. But okay, actually, though, this proves my point in that I didn't remember it, and I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. A casual viewer isn't going to remember it, and Moffat isn't writing for the fans, he's writing for the casual viewer. And that's a huge part of these kind of continuity errors, is that we can have fun picking at them, but in the overall context of the show, which is a mainstream popular show, no one's going to really give a crap.
Yeah,
And so that's really what it's like that.
but there's a difference. There's a difference between saying I'm writing for the casual viewer and
saying fuck the fans
yeah,
is only for the casual viewer.
Well, no, it's still for the fans, though, because, I mean, there are ways to counteract. I mean, there are ways to explain these things. I mean, there have been...
Yes, but the fans shouldn't have to do all the explaining while the writers actively circumvent their attempts to explain it.
Well, I mean, explanations are kind of boring anyway. Who wants one of those?
Oh, you can do it really quickly.
Raises
You need to sit there forever
I
explaining
read a
it.
very interesting article.
I was gonna say when they introduced the Time Lords.
Well, I read a very interesting article a while back that was discussing when the Doctor Who magazine came out, when it premiered. One of the things it always did was it had quasi-official explanations for continuity errors, and the guy said this kind of missed the point because the fun in discussing continuity errors is not that we want a definite answer. The fun is we think of all these different little answers, all these little different loopholes and cracks that can explain and make this all fit cohesive. That's the fun of it. And it's not really, we don't want a specific answer, we just want some answers, a possibility of an answer.
See,
Which is actually what Toho does a lot.
I like to have a story to follow without
Mhm.
having to be like, you know what, I need to fill this in with fan fiction before I can continue along the story.
Pretty
But
much,
it's just
yes.
like, I don't know. I mean, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, and when Scarrow showed up, I'm like, oh, Scarrow was back. That's interesting. And then I just continued on with the episode. So, I guess it's all in how you view continuity and where that's such
I
an
did that
important...
my first watch. It was my second watch that I actually started going, wait a minute.
See, I just kind of assumed that it wasn't Scarrow and that it was just somewhere else that there were statues. And then I saw other people talking about Scarrow being back. I'm like, wait a second. What do you mean
Yep.
Scarrow's back? That's when I went back and re-looked at it. I'm like, wait, they were on Scarrow now? It's like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, that was kind of my point of, hey, wait. But yes, then I get
Still,
to
though, there's just that... There's no need to please the fan base. I mean, there really isn't. And what you need to do is please the people who you really want to be watching the show. And
But the fan base are the people who go out, sell the show to other people. I mean,
yes.
if it weren't for Classic Who fans who preached it to other people, how many people would not be watching the show now?
yes, but at the same time, it's a huge train of thought that the thing that killed the program in the 80s was that it catered to the fan base for about 5 years, and that's what killed
That's
it.
the thing. You can't cater to only the fan base, but you have to acknowledge and respect them.
Yes,
If you want
and I think I think Moffat does by... I mean, the very fact he chooses to reference all these past things that are kind of fun if you know what he's talking about, and the fact he wants to bring back these old Daleks and chooses to have those, that's pleasing the fan base. And I think...
Except he does it in a completely irrational manner. I like the
again, though,
idea
it's
of
just
having
that
them
there are explanations. And I mean, there are explanations to reason why Scarrow's back. And do we really want the episode to spend 5 minutes saying this is why Scarrow is back?
Have we got?
Yes.
Have we gotten an explanation as to why having sex in a TARDIS makes a Time Lord baby?
Oh, please do not get me into that.
But
Do
I'd
not-
like an explanation to
I
that
will
because
spend the
Okay.
next 2 hours talking about that.
Have you guys seen the episode Kinda, the Fifth Doctor episode?
Yes.
Yes. I remember watch the making of documentary. One of the more interesting conversations was it had bits from the writer, Christopher Bailey, and the script editor, Eric Sayward. And Eric Sayward was just saying, you have to explain things. You can't just have... Like, the writer at one point had an idea. He wanted a kind of a Cinderella kind of deal, or not Cinderella, Red Riding Hood kind of deal, where he wanted the grandmother to turn into the wolf. And Eric Sayward was like, no, you have to explain it. You have to explain how the grandmother turns into the wolf. And it's more interesting to see it rather than to explain it. He always found the explanations less interesting. And I think that's a lot of what Moffat is doing. Moffat
Except
would
he's
rather
not
do
showing
stuff than explain it, though.
There's a difference between
There is
it
that.
and handles. We see Scar. We are neither shown nor explained why it's there, and that's what annoys me.
But necessary. Why is it necessary to explain
Because
it?
it's not supposed to be there.
But if you're a casual viewer, you wouldn't know that.
Again, you're talking. If you're saying,
I'm not saying screw the fan base. I'm
there
saying
are ways
that
you can respect base and the casual viewer, and respect their nods to
I
continuity.
mean, you don't have to spend half the episode, but a throwaway line as to, like we were talking about, having an emotional response. Oh, damn, when I restarted the universe, Scarrow came back.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And I will agree that if
from the episode, but you're explaining.
I will agree that if he included a line that explained why Scar was there, it would have been nice. But at the same time, it's just like, I guess I just didn't really see the point of wanting to explain why Scar was there. Because he's not actively, it's not like he's, as he's riding up saying, I will piss off all the fans by making Scarro appear. This is my master plan. He just wants Scarro back. And it's just he wants to tell a story other than this is why Scarro was back.
And maybe if we look at it the right way, maybe he does plan to eventually possibly do a little bit of an explanation as to how that happened. We don't know yet.
Moffat is known to do that. Moffat is known to not explain things until later. So that's also a possibility.
And if it does, I will reverse my opinion. But at the moment, it's cheesing me off.
But admittedly, for a otherwise pretty good episode, that's about the only real bad nitpick. And to be honest, if you look at the rest of it, you can kind of look away for a while.
It's a good concept built with flawed things, so it can't be better than, say, a 3 out of 5 for me, because we get the relationship thing, and that's supposed to be a major thing. You get the parts of the ending that irk me. You get the parts of that. So it's like you add up all of the flawed things. It's like it's a good episode, but it's a good building, but all of the bricks it's built with are flawed. So there's only so good the building can be at the end.
For me, the fact that we never got a build-up about the relationship is so much worse than the fact we never got an explanation for Scarro. Because Scarro has to throw away.
Because that's a major story thing, and it's basically, it's basically a bait and switch. They're like, we're going to give you this hook about, Amy and Rory, and then we're going to, switch it out, and, they're all of a sudden fine with no real attempt, with no real resolution going into it.
Well, I think it's actually more like an issue that...
the Doctor's reaction to it.
I think it's more an issue that it has no bearing on their... It's really all about character. Like, you can't have a good... the very fact that sitcoms are largely plotless and based entirely on the chemistry of the lead characters, that's what television is. And so, when you don't explain that, when you don't build that in your television series, it's like doing this. Might as well just make it a movie or something.
I agree with movies that the character thing is bigger than the Scarro thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think though that the existence of the Asylum itself, though, being the freaking title of the plot and the central basis for which it happened, yet shouldn't exist by all means, is just as big.
But look,
this episode
I would even say that telling them that he's the Doctor at the end is worse than the Scarro thing. But then again, one's more easily randomable than the other.
Let's just engage in a completely arbitrary hypothetical, and let's pretend this came out before Scar. Let's say the Seventh Doctor never destroyed Scarro, and it was never time locked. It's explicitly said, or this was set before we've ever been told Scarro was destroyed. Then that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But Amy and Rory not being set up well, would still be a problem.
Yeah, the whole thing about them forgetting the Doctor leads me up to one of my other problems, and that's the telepathic web. When have the Daleks ever had the ability to communicate?
Yeah, that didn't make sense.
Did they use the word telepathic in the episode?
Yes, they did, which is why it came down to telepathic. Yeah, they did.
Because I was kind of seeing it as like a giant Wi-Fi network.
It is essentially what it is. It's a biomechanical Wi-Fi network. Either way, the Daleks have never had that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I think especially
they always talk to each other, so why would they need? They wouldn't have dialogue if
they've always had it. Even they would always consult computers for information and things.
Yeah,
even in the old,
especially as it goes on, they rely more and more on the mechanized parts of their suit. It's like they download. They're downloading information. They basically use They basically use the memory of their suits.
Didn't make any sense to me. That was
especially since they could have used. Well, if they always had it, they could have definitely used it to control the Robomen, and the Doctor couldn't have said, "Hey, turn on the Daleks." way back in Invasion of Earth.
Oh, Invasion of Earth, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a little flub. That should have been looked into a little bit more.
They could have turned around and been like, we invaded this species, or we dissected, such and such, and put this ability into our genetic code or something.
So on the surface, it may look like this is a good episode.
Yeah.
But when you get down to the nitty gritty, Moffat was being lazy.
That's where I say it's built up. It's built of fundamentally flawed parts to create an okay whole.
Well, I think I still would argue though, and this is just things like that don't bother me as much as stuff like I'm more concerned with what is he doing with the thematic elements of the show? What is he doing with the characters? What is he doing with that? And on that level, I was very impressed with the episode. And I was very impressed also with the atmosphere of it. And so I liked it a little better on that.
On the atmosphere.
I will agree, though.
Yeah.
The fact that the whole plot, or not, the fact that the status quo at the end is built built on the idea that the Daleks have this technology that we didn't have any prior knowledge of, that's lazy. I will give you that. And that definitely is an objective flaw in the episode. The rest of it, I would argue, is really just, I don't know, not as important to me,
Once you start adding it all together, though, it's okay, the relationship writing, bad.
Like you said, adding it together.
Bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
if you take any one, two,
or three
flaws, it's okay. But when it seems everywhere you look in the episode, it's built of these types of either oversights or laziness. It just seems every element of it is flawed in some way.
I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, because that's just like the things we brought up are okay. Scarro's back, and they didn't explain it. Telepathic field didn't explain it. Relationship stuff, which is a big thing. And what am I missing? In the grand scheme of things, just limiting to that, the only major issue is the relationship stuff. The rest of it is only minor parts of the episode.
The fact that they crashed the ship a year ago and only bothered to go after the Doctor now, even though they all have time travel capability.
Yeah, that's a little troublesome, but it's really just that it's either that it wasn't a problem till now, or that they had some troubles getting the Doctor there, and it ended up being a year later. Either of which are perfectly valid explanations, My assumption is it just wasn't a problem till now. So yeah.
I can't see that it wasn't just a problem till now. Something crashes through.
You could
do a planetary
by normal Dalek rules, you could say, "Oh, they didn't notice it until now." But the problem with that, we just introduced a telepathic field that says the Daleks should have known the second it happened.
Yes. You've got continuity gap conflicting with the plot.
Well, they don't conflict with the plot, though. I just mean... They conflict with the premise, but the rest of the plot
to take this episode
in spite of them. Like, okay, the continuity errors we've mentioned make about 2 of the scenes completely bad. But the rest of the show is still pretty good. I mean,
every single scene that Amy and Rory appear in are mentioned by the things we've discussed.
But the only scene I think that's inherently damaged by what we've already discussed is the one where they really have that argument, because that's where that all comes out. Mm-hmm. The rest of the scenes with Amy and Rory are fine. It's really just that one. And I mean, it's not a perfect episode. I would give it probably a 8, maybe a 7 out of 10. but I don't think it's quite as bad because of these continuity errors.
I don't know. For me, continuity is part of the legs you actually stand on for your series, so it's kind of knocking the legs out from under it. If we can't trust what you write today is going to hold true tomorrow,
then why watch it?
Yeah.
Just because you enjoy the show. I mean, if we look at the classic series, I'm going to bring that up again, especially like Tom Baker era. No consistency between any of the episodes. Each one,
it all adds up.
Right. Exactly. Like we have.
It's not just that there's
a lot of the things we brought up are just minor nitpicks, but when you have, as many minor nitpicks as we brought up in the past hour and a half, the fact that we can still come up with more, that's where the problem lies. Like we haven't even gotten.
It's still though that. We've mentioned Skaro, we've mentioned the telepathic field, and I think that's about it. Or technically the Asylum itself is a bit of a continuity weird thing.
The entire point of the episode. It's an asylum that, by continuity standards, shouldn't exist. Yet it does. But and it's done without explanation that it does.
In the bounds of the episode itself, it's perfectly fine. If we go into it, say, this is completely separate from continuity, and watch it on that regards, it's a very, very good episode.
But then why call it Doctor Who if it's going to be separate from everything else?
Because it has the Doctor in it? That's a good reason.
Bubbly, timey-wimey.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm not saying continuity is not unimportant. And I do think it's a problem that he didn't properly say, this is why Scarlet's back. It could have been done in a throwaway line. But it's also not this huge, big problem. Because the episode is good in spite of these problems.
I don't think any of us are saying that any any single continuity thing is a major problem. It's just the fact that it seems each element of the episode conflicts with good storytelling like the romance thing, or conflicts with continuity.
But again,
I agree with that.
If it was for little niches in the right, a good episode.
Although I still say one visual, and this I'm like, don't take me wrong, this is definitely a nitpick, but the fact that Oswald's whole little thing was so pristine after she believed she had been there for a year, kind of a dead tip-off. And I don't know if it's supposed to be a dead tip-off, but I'm going to take it more as they're more focused on making it look nice than making it believable.
Yeah.
Like I said, minor nitpick, I don't want to go too far into it, but it's something I've been having at the back of my mind the whole time we've been talking, so I wanted to...
What I think is clever about that, though, is that we... At least when I was watching it, without the knowledge that she was a Dalek...
I could see there's some cleverness into it. I honestly, just based on the rest of the things we've discussed, I don't think it's intentional. I think it was just, but that comes down to subjective point of view, and it's a minor thing either way.
Yeah, and you think about it, you really see that in other places too. That escape pod that they climbed down into should have been abandoned for about a year, correct?
Yeah. Yeah,
wouldn't it have gotten really dusty in about a year?
You're right. There should have been more things would have decomposed than just their skin and flesh.
Yeah. So it's really he's just made everything. Right. And that just actually occurred to me this minute.
Yeah.
So to die in a nutshell,
Doctor Who is an awesome show if you don't think critically about it. Alright guys, unless anyone has anything major to bring up, I think it's a good time to wrap up. We've pretty much brought that to a close. And final thoughts in 100 words or less?
I would have liked to see more classic Daleks. And actually have them do stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I would have liked to see the Asylum Daleks be more insane. Otherwise, I think that concept was carried out okay other than that.
Yeah, have like one standout Dalek and maybe bring him back if things turn out really good.
Yeah.
And And I would say I settle this episode on a 3 out of 5 or maybe somewhere between a 5 and 6 out of 10.
I would give it probably. I think I would give it an 8 out of 10, personally.
Of course, I would point out that your major complaint is the one that would automatically drop it from a 10 to a 7 out of 10 to me. So.
Yeah, it actually. I
weight,
would have given it a 10 out of 10 if it weren't for the relationship bit, and that's what dropped it to an 8 for me. Just the fact that one scene was written very badly. That definitely is what dropped it to an 8.
Yeah. Alrighty.
I think it's a 2.5 out of 5 or 5 out of 10. Because, yes, the relationship's about a 3-point drop, and then there's a point drop for me for each continuity gap I caught.
It's midwater, but we'll see if they retract any problems.
Yeah. Subject to change if Moffat actually explains anything. Which I'm still waiting for him to actually do any explaining.
Shake fist.
While they're at it, they can explain how it is that the Daleks managed to recruit all these people that would normally be their enemies against the Doctor in a time period where the Doctor hadn't yet angered half of them.
Good question.
Just to the mind. Ooh.
Okay, guys. Well then, did anybody else have thoughts in there?
I think that kind of covers it in a nutshell.
Okay. So I think until next week, that was an Unearthly Podcast talking about Asylum of the Daleks.
See you next week.
It's driving me crazy.
The sword in a spaceship.
Woo!
No. Let's think of something.
Anything in the whole world.
Doctor, do you like green apples? And can I buy you a soda?
Nice one.
Oh my God! I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth.
Okay, so I've come in and I've gone, ha! You go.
Doctor, do you like green apples? And can I buy you a soda?